Good morning. Welcome to BlackUSA.News. My name's Donnie Glover, and we're here with the one and only Tasemere Gathers. Tasemere, how are you? Top of the day to you.
I'm well. Good morning. Good morning. I'm so excited.
So what you do this weekend, Taz?
So this weekend, I had what is called a brunch pitch with my co-founder, Emma, from United Black Businesses. And what we did was we created our Black version of the Shark Tank. That is what everybody is calling it. So we had some heavy hitters as judges, and we presented to them 4 Black entrepreneurs, and they presented and pitched their businesses to a group of Black judges, ranging from people that are helping folks get into retail. I'm talking about Whole Foods, Target, Sally's, to people who do marketing, to people who do business development, PR. They were in the room definitely asking a lot of questions. And then the audience, to my surprise, were also people in product management. So they were talking about, hey, I work for Carol's Daughters, and I work for this company, and I work for that company, and this is what you need to think about. So it was a really, really great time. And the room was full of Black folks. So I loved it.
And this was at the Harlem Business Alliance?
It was at the Harlem Business Alliance.
And so for those just tuning in, this is Tasemere Gathers. Down the bottom, that's her show, The Blackout, live from New York, Saturdays, 10 a.m. East Coast time. And I guess I got to clean up that July 3rd. How is the show going?
It's going well. I mean, on Saturday, I gave my viewers a tour of walking down 125th Street, really my walk to HBA, which is on 124 and Malcolm X, and was pointing out different historic landmarks that I knew about, also giving people like a bird's eye view of like, this is what 125th Street looks like in the morning, right? Because most people only see it when it's super crowded. There's a lot of people there, but you don't get to see like and explore what it really looks like when there's not that many people around. So we walked past the Apollo Theater. We walked past this mural on the back of Foot Locker that actually got a lot of protests. When Foot Locker moved in, they wanted to cover the mural up. And the residents in Harlem were not having that. They were like, nope, you're not going to come in here and take down our culture. You're going to keep that mural up. So they made them keep the mural up. Then we walked past the state office building, which is named after Adam Clayton Powell, and we talked about that. That is also where a lot of Malcolm X made a lot of his speeches when he was just talking to the general population before he became a really big heavy hitter. So we walked down the historic 125th Street until we got to Let It and turned up and went to HBA.
Wow. Harlem is full of so much history and culture. It's been called the Mecca of Black America. Do you feel that in your soul? Do you get that feeling in your soul?
I do, but you know, when people are looking for that Black excellence that they're looking for in the history that they're looking for in Harlem, it's not just the streets and the historical landmarks, it's also in the people. The people that live there embody the culture of Harlem, because when you start talking to folks, you learn like who they're related to, what their parents or great grandparents used to be involved in, and they actually remember the street being a lot different because now there's a lot of more national big box brands on 125th Street, but they remember it when it was like, oh, that used to be the number joint over there, and that used to be a bakery over here, and I remember when this building got burned down, and I remember what was happening here. So they have a different perspective of 125th Street than what it currently is. And I'm sure moving forward, people will have another perspective in another 10, 15 years than what's currently there now. But it's really in talking to the people that have lived there and they are really invested in the community. And then you start to fall in love with Harlem all over again because you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that this was happening here. I didn't know that you were involved in that. So Harlem is a very Like, you have to go out and meet the people to really experience it. It's not something that you can just walk down the street, and you'll get that feeling too, but more as a tourist. But if you really want to know what's going on, you have to talk to some people that are doing some things in Harlem.
Well, one person that I've talked to over the years is a gentleman I refer to as the godfather of Harlem, Mr. Walter Edwards.
Yes, he is like a wealth of information. Anybody in Harlem, he knows them. So if you want to get the skinny on what's going on, the politics, the inner relationships, the alliances, and all this other stuff of why certain things are happening, he's definitely the person that you want to speak to.
Well, he thinks the world of you because he knows the legacy can only survive when we connect his generation with my generation and then your generation.
Of course. Of
You know,
course.
to see the work that he and his group did on 116th at the Mist, and to hear him tell the story about mixed use or mixed income people living together. The restaurant, of course, we did a couple of Black Wall Streets in the restaurant there. Just, you know, it's something you have to experience. I mean, as a Baltimorean, I loved it. I love seeing Black people doing things. It was the closest thing to Africa from my perspective, where everywhere you look, you see Black people running things.
Yep. And doing it well. They're not just running it and you're like, what the heck is going on? They're doing it well. They're doing it justice. They're speaking from a place of experience and knowledge. So it's really helpful to just, I also get impressed by other young people that are sitting on the boards of the NAACP, and they're opening up their own chapters, and they are involved in local politics, and they're not afraid to run for office, and they have all these new ideas. So you're currently seeing people like wanting to be invested in growing Harlem and keeping Harlem Black, right? Because that's also something that happens where neighborhoods are changing. People try to push out the culture of the people that have been there that made it possible for people to even know that they exist. And then they want to come and they want to change the agenda, and they want it to be not about people that are really, I would say, legacy people in the neighborhood. They want it to be about a new agenda. So seeing how people are like fighting back, like, no, we need to keep our eyes focused on this. We need to be focused on Black people. It's a lot of other people in New York City, and it's a lot of other groups that need help as well. But for this right here, we need to be focused on Black folks.
You know, Taz, we met when Mr. Edwards and Regina Smith from the Harlem Business Alliance, as the Villa Jackson, the engineer architect, we came together with the Black Business Empowerment Commission.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So the Black Business Empowerment Commission is really a group of, I want to say, leaders in the community, also entrepreneurs, and mostly Black folks that are interested in moving a Black agenda. As we know, in America, no matter where you are, there's usually a lot of talk about a minority agenda or an inclusion agenda, right? But they are very focused on saying the word Black. Right. So they're like, nope, minority does not equal Black. We know from the moment that you say minority that you are not talking about us. And we want to keep our foot on your neck to talk about what is this going to do for Black people. Right. And then going a step further, what is this going to do for Black people who have a history dated back to chattel slavery? Because these are the folks who really have been, disservice by this nation, right? And we don't have a connection to another country. So it's not nationality. It's not an immigrant story. A lot of those things get mixed into when you're talking about Black, and we get that, right? We're all Black folks, and we need to love each other. But we also need to understand, how do we help rise up people who have put their bodies, their minds, their everything on the line to make it possible for other people to even migrate and immigrate into this country. Because if it hadn't been for the people that were here, these things would not have happened. We would not have gotten people from other Black continents and other Black countries to want to even come here. And we know that the Atlantic slave trade, we were all over the place. But as it relates to the U.S., if people weren't marching, if people weren't, speaking up for the injustices that were happening and willing to put their bodies on the line, we wouldn't have gotten civil rights acts that even open up the door for people to immigrate here from other countries, right? So like, while we need to focus on Black and the diaspora of Black people, we also need to focus on the Black people that were here being lynched, and they have family members that they can know, like, this is what happened, right? Because those are the people that really paved the way in order to make all these other wonderful things that everybody tries to pick apart. When you talk about the civil rights movement and what has happened out of that, it seems like every group outside of Black people get to take the benefits of the Civil Rights Act, right? Everybody else is kind of like building off of the backs of Black people who suffered the most. And part of that is our fault because we weren't clear in our language, as we're always trying to be so inclusive. We excluded ourselves. So BBEC is like, nope. We're going to be intentional about saying Black people. We're going to be intentional about saying chattel slavery, because when we're saying that, we know exactly who we're talking about, and we know that it makes it really complicated for other people to weasel their way into fitting into that box, because then that kind of dilutes what you're trying to do. So it's amazing.
Taz, when you think of your generation, like 30 and under, how many of your peers share similar sentiments?
I would say, that's a good question. I would say some. So I'm actually I'm going to be turning 35, right? So I would say people from maybe like 30,
I thought you were 25, girl.
30 to maybe like 40. I think that we kind of got a better understanding of what it means to say Black. I feel like the 30 and under, my challenge is that sometimes they haven't had to struggle as much, and they have this concept of I deserve something, right? So they are more like, I deserve this, and I don't necessarily need to work for it because I just showed up, right? So it's almost like, I feel like that group is more like an inclusionary group. They don't really want to stand and say like, no, this is what I need for Black folks. They're like, no, this is what I need for everyone. And they don't really understand that when they speak about everyone, they kind of are, Xing themselves out, right? They don't get that, right? So they're like, no, this needs to be about everybody, and we need to do this on behalf of everybody, and we're all the same because we're all humans, and that's true. We are all humans, but humans have different experiences, right? So they don't really, I think that they get a little confused with that.
And maybe overlook the history.
I think that they're not interested. I mean, I think that they're really like more into like instant gratification, right? So like, even though I'm mid-30s, I remember when we didn't have the internet, right? I remember when you had dial-up and you had to put the little phone cord into the box, and if somebody called the phone, your internet was cut off, and you still had to look up things in the encyclopedia and use a dictionary and a thesaurus before you could just Google certain things, right? So I think that technology definitely has played a part in like, I don't have to wait for something because I'm used to getting it almost as soon as I press enter. So they're like, no, when I get a job, I need to make $100,000 because I need to live comfortably. Where it's like, okay, usually, you kind of don't go into that with no experience. You get what I'm trying to say? So it's almost like I deserve this because I went to college, and now everybody has gone to college. You know how many people have PhDs? Everybody has this. So you can't say like, I just went to school, So I deserve this lifestyle. You still have to be willing to work, and you still have to be willing to think. And I think that they don't like to think as much. Not all of them, but a majority of them do not like to think as much.
So what can we do to help this entitled generation?
I think it's really like hard knock lessons. I think that they start to get it when people are telling them no, and then they have temper tantrums, right? But I think that we, as I guess you would say, a little older than them, have to give them the insight that, you know, you still have to work for something. Everything just isn't handed over to you, because then what are you going to pick up and take on for the generation behind you? You know what I mean?
So tell us about you going into business. How did this evolve?
So I didn't think I was an entrepreneur. I was working to help other entrepreneurs, but I hadn't really seen myself as one. And to be honest, it was really an act of rebellion. I wanted to try new things out at my job, and my boss kept telling me no. It was like, no, can't do that. That's not going to work. So I really just started, exploring how I can see if my thoughts were validated, could be validated or not. And so I started the DM firm. That started off as a business development firm that eventually pivoted and became a business. It started off as a marketing firm, excuse me, and then it eventually pivoted and became a business development firm. And then about 4 months ago, I called one of my friends and I said, hey, do you want to start this pitch competition? And she was like, yes, let's do it. So then I, became a co-founder of another business. So now I have 2 businesses. And as you guys can see, I have my chief of staff here with me who tries to keep me in line.
What I want to know when the bug first hit you.
In 2016. In 2016, I started really exploring, and one of my friends told me at the time, I was like, do you think I should try, after a few years of you working somewhere, people are like, oh, you need to apply for a new job or apply for a new position because you want to move up in the ranks. And so I was talking to my friends and I was like, do you think I should do that? Do you think I should start looking for a new job, maybe do something a little differently? And she said, I think you should just work for yourself. And I was like, wow. Me? I should work for myself. And so she said, you can't just keep jumping from one place to another place. It would be really great if, you tried to work for yourself because you're really smart. And then another one of my friends said, I'm going to write your resignation letter, because I had never at that point written a resignation letter before. So she gave me a deadline of if you don't have a deadline of when you're going to resign, you're never going to resign. So we're going to set a deadline, and I'm going to write the resignation letter. And the only thing you have to add in is the date that you're leaving. And so I said, okay. And then we started practicing how I was going to do my resignation, because I didn't really know how to resign from a job. So how do you do it? What do you say? And so we did that for a little bit, and then the day came and everybody was waiting on that text message thread to see if I actually did it or not. So I said, okay, I'm gonna go resign right now. And then I took lunch, and then I called everyone to let them know how it went.
I never heard you tell me that before. So how did it feel?
We go thinking about resigning or actually resigning?
Actually resigning.
I was excited, but a little nervous, because I was my own safety net. I had never experienced you are going to leave, and what you're leaving into is just you, right? Usually when you leave, you're like, hey, I'm going to go start at this other place. I got offered a really great opportunity. And then sometimes you're employer wants to negotiate, like, can we give you another title? Can we give you another raise? But how do you negotiate against someone saying like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I don't have a back. I am the plan. There is nothing else.
So this is going to be in your book, in your first book.
Yes. In my first book, I have a series of books that I have to write. But this is going to be a chapter in the first book.
Do you know how much you inspire people?
No, because I'm just out here trying to figure it out.
You did the darn thing. Let me ask you this. The pitch competition. Who won the pitch competition Saturday?
Oh my gosh. Adrian from the Shea Butter Diva. It was super, when I tell you it was super close, it was close. Like, it was like, I'm so happy I'm not a judge. It was between her and the owner of Neighborhood Brulee in Harlem, which is a cafe. It's ran by a gentleman named Dwayne. They were like neck and neck. It was like so close.
So they had to go back and forth. They had to do this
They
spiel.
were going back and forth, but the judges were going back and forth from their rubric that we gave them to determine who was actually going to be the winner. But
Can we see this? Can we see this on video anywhere?
So the video is being edited now. So once it's out, I will definitely send it to you.
Can we bring those two on? Can we bring them? Are you gonna bring them on?
Of course we can bring them on too. Of course we can bring them on whenever you want. I'll call them and get them on here. We also had another gentleman named Charles from the Leaf Spot, which is doing a software for people that are going to be moving cannabis, right? Similar, he was comparing it to like the software of Amazon. They did an amazing job. It was great to see them all sitting in their positions of being entrepreneurs, presenting their stuff to a panel of judges, and the judges did not take it easy on them. They were tough. They were asking them hard questions, and the audience was asking even harder questions, right? Because you don't know who's sitting in the audience. But it was really, really, really great. Now we're gearing up for our November competition, which is entitled the Blackout Redemption, which is like so exciting because we're bringing back people who pitched in June and August to pitch against each other. We're bringing back the two winners from both of those months to pitch against each other. And we have some celebrity judges that are going to be there. So we have one of the casting directors from Shark Tank is going to be a judge.
Wow.
We have a woman named Precious Williams, who is known as the Killer Pitch Master. She's going to be a judge.
Don't forget me when you famous,
Of course, I'm going to still have my Blackout New York show on Saturday.
Taz, I got to ask you this. You're a wife, a mother, an entrepreneur. Tell me about the mister.
The what?
Your husband.
Oh, he's also an entrepreneur. He's from the Ivory Coast. And so he's also an entrepreneur. He's not here now, which is why I have my chief of staff in this interview with me. But he works really hard on trying to build his business. You know, I kind of stay out the way. I don't give a lot of opinions or advice unless he asks me for it. So I kind of let him do his thing, and I more or less figure out my thing over here. With my two things that I'm doing. But, you know, the brunch pitch, I have Emma, who is my co-founder. So we talk about 5 times a day of trying to line different things up. What are we going to do? How are we going to do it?
You told me he's a serial entrepreneur.
Yeah, so he actually has all these ideas. Like in his brain, he wants to own like at least 5 businesses. And he's not necessarily thinking about all his businesses being here in the States. He's also thinking about owning things back in the Ivory Coast as well. So he is like has his own master plan about how he wants to map it out. I have at least two other businesses in my brain that I also want to launch. So we're just, I don't know, the entrepreneur bug bit the two of us, and we're just creating these brands. And I have to find time to write a book. As you have kept telling me, I need to write a book. So I need to find time to like write as well.
These have just most exciting times for you, for your husband, for Eli. I mean, the family, the businesses, plural, you know,
Yes.
business connections. And you've connected with people I know already, at least here in Maryland through Michael Haney. And then you're talking about Africa. Mr. Haney just dropped by yesterday and brought me some coffee back from Kenya.
Oh,
And
nice.
I'm seeing this African American connection that was articulated by the likes of Leon Sullivan. He had African American summit in Harare, Zimbabwe for like 8 or 9 years. But I'm seeing the collaboration across the diaspora. I'm seeing us using technology. You know, there's Bitcoin now. A lot of our brothers and sisters in Africa have computers. They're making music. They're making movies. I just see a whole new thing opening up that hasn't happened before. And you're right in the eye of the hurricane. In New York City, the finance capital of the world, the media capital of the world. And that's why your show is so important to me.
Oh, thank you.
You know, we got shows from the West Coast too, including this cat Kamal Hubbard. I know you've spoken with them. So when can we get this pitch competition in Baltimore?
Well, we are actually planning out 2022. So we will be talking to you about the best time to do it so we can get it written down and have our months, because we actually are on the move, right? This is actually one of the, I want to say, it's so innovative, but it sounds so crazy when it's coming from one of the people that created it. However, when you experience the brunch pitch, it's like me talking about it doesn't do it as much service as experiencing it, because it's really an all Black judging panel. The audience is all Black. You don't know who's in the audience that's going to ask questions or where they're coming from or the experience that they have. And this is really grassroots entrepreneurs. This is not these are not people that are necessarily, you know, business majors. They have all these different connections with people. They're just like, hey, I enjoy making this product. I started this business because of whatever, and I really need some assistance in figuring out how to move it forward. And they don't have to pay, right? Like the pitchers are not paying to be a part of the competition. We're not paying the judges for their time. The judges are just donating their time to give back. They're all business folks. They all have connections. They make, I mean, we walked into a restaurant and we saw Nicola speaking with the winner, which is amazing. Nicola runs, is a co-founder and executive director of Harlem Park to Park, and she was there talking with folks. We have Dizzy Brown, who has been doing events for Nick Cannon, Wildin' Out, for the Black Ink Crew Queens. He gives his time, he gives people's things, he calls them up and gives them suggestions. So we have Patriana, who's a PR expert, who also gives her expertise in helping them figure out media and press and what you need to do and how you need to line things up. And they're doing this because they really want to see Black folks go to the next level, right? There's not like, hey, this is my invoice, slide me a check or cash at me before I can talk to you. This is really, they're really, really committed. I mean, our judges are amazing. We have Dr. Bobby, who's a celebrity orthodontist. She has a couple of businesses. We have Kenneth Russell, who's the founder of Black Business Works, which is a Black merchants service program, and he also gets people involved in different things. So we have a lot of good judges, and then we find judges from the community that we're going to. So when we go to Baltimore, Donnie, we will be calling you, asking you who needs to be sitting on this panel. Who do you think would be a great
Well, I don't
asset?
know that we can wait till next year. I mean, we got to get a sample by Christmas. We got to at least an appetizer. I don't know. I'm at to pull it together. So is it done online or is it all in person?
It's in person. This is like in person. We definitely follow the COVID restrictions that I
CDC.
guess the state or the city has for how they want things to be done. And we make sure that we follow those guidelines and that we come in and we do what we have to do.
So one of your first clients was the Harlem Business Alliance and Regina Smith. Tell me about Regina Smith.
Regina Smith is a beast, if that is a way to put it. Regina is so intentional and very aggressive when it comes to the Black agenda. She does not bite her tongue for anybody. She would tell you straight up, we talking about Black people. I don't want to hear anything else that you got going on if it's not about Black people. She definitely gives me a lot of resources to think about. Saturday was Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, and I called her and I was like, hey, did you know that our brunch pitch was on this day? She's like, that speech was cute and everything, but I want to talk about his economic agenda for Black America. I don't want to talk about kumbaya and holding hands. I want to talk about his economic agenda. So she definitely is always very focused on how our policies, laws, actions, what have you, going to impact Black folks in a way that makes them more self-sustainable through economics and entrepreneurship. So she doesn't move on that. She's very stern about that.
Oh, you've had some excellent trainers. Tell me about Zavilla.
Zavilla, oh my gosh, she's another one. Zavilla is definitely someone who will download a whole policy that a politician is proposing, read it, redline it about like, this isn't this is not, we need to go through this with a fine-tooth comb. We also need to hold people accountable. We need to do research. I mean, I talk to Zavilla often, as I talk to Regina often. They give me a lot of advice, a lot of encouragement about my two brands that I have. They're both moms. They give me advice about how to balance, being an entrepreneur and also being a mom, and how I need to try to think about doing things a certain kind of way so I also don't burn out, because, this whole team, no sleep, doesn't work for everybody. I need to sleep. I don't know about everybody else. So trying to figure out how to balance that out, and how to do it well, and how to combat certain things that happens when you are a Black woman trying to just do your thing and live in your greatness. There's always going to be folks that are trying to, give you limitations. So how do you combat that, right? Like, how do you continue to set the bar high for yourself and also find other people that can help you move things along in the way that you want it to go? So I call Regina and Zavilla quite often, along with a couple of other people.
So I'm hearing you say that we need, if we're going to be healthy mentally, physically, spiritually, we need a loyal support system.
Yes. And and the support system has to go two ways. I also talk to Terrence Baker a lot. He has been someone that has been helping me understand the realm of finance and community give back that folks are supposed to be doing, and what does that mean, and how do you tap in? And people think that you have to know everything, and you don't have to know everything. You need to know what you know, and you need to know who you need to know to get you the rest of the information, right? But you don't need to know everything. And so having other people that are experts in things that you don't know, like, for example, you're great as a journalist. I'm not a journalist. I never took a journalism course. I never wrote for a newspaper before, but talking to you about media, talking to you about writing, talking to you about what it takes to do editorials and things like that helps me to understand what it is that I need to do, not as it's related to my career, but just in my life, right? Like, what do I need to do in my life to be a better whatever, fill in the blank? It's helpful for folks to reach outside of themselves. The pen, the power of the pen. You always tell me that opens more doors than anything else. So making time to write, making time to research, making time to explore your own thoughts and how you want it to be articulated is really helpful. So I'm someone that always, looks outside of like, okay, I know what I do well, and then who can I connect with that I can build trust, that they can trust me, I can trust them. How can I give back to them because they're pouring into me? How do I reciprocate that, right? And what can I do to like help them do whatever it is and work it from that perspective?
It is often suggested, don't any better, that Black people don't stick together. Everything you have told me for the past 35 minutes counters all of that negativity.
We do stick together. I think that the powers that be want us to feel that we don't stick together. And that's the image and that's the thoughts that they want to drill into everybody else's heads about Black people, like across the diaspora. We don't like each other. We always are having problems with each other. The only thing that we stick together in is in crime, right? We do crimes. We make things unsafe. We're not educated. Only the elite people are the educated folks. But I'm an everyday Black person, right? I'm just an everyday Black person. I'm not even going to say an American because sometimes I'm like a little like, I don't know if I want to be telling people that because of things that we do to folks, right? But I'm just an everyday Black person. And so my network is mainly made up of Black people. And when you think about it, Black people live together. We live in the same communities. Those are your first friends, your first teachers, your first motivators, your first mentors, right? So how can you not have a connection? How can the storyline be that Black people don't work together when you live in a Black community and probably your neighbor is Black, right? Your mechanic might be Black. When you go to the grocery store, whether the person stocking the shelves or the person checking you out is Black. You have Black kids. Your kids probably have Black friends. You're probably parenting or helping to mentor your children's friends and vice versa. So I don't know how the storyline comes that we don't talk to each other. Because we do. We love to eat. We invite people over to dinner and most of the people are Black, right? So like, I don't understand where that storyline comes from. And I think that we have to change the narrative.
Hurt people. Hurt people. Hurt people.
Yep, of course.
Eric B. Adams, he's your new mayor. That's what it looks like.
Who?
Eric B. Adams.
Oh yeah, the people in Brooklyn love him. They love him. They love him. They love him. They are like, Eric is my man.
Walter Edwards had him at one of our Black Business Empowerment Commission events in Harlem. And then I met him also in Brooklyn. We had a Black Wall Street at Brooklyn Borough Hall. What do you foresee in an Eric B. Adams administration?
I foresee a lot of community. Eric is someone that, even though he is the Brooklyn Borough president, he shows up at everyday events, right? And he doesn't show up with his minions around that are like, hey, you can only be here for 5 minutes and then you have to leave out. Or he shows up and he sits with his people and he is really open to hearing what is happening on the ground. It's not just these closed events that you can't get into, and it was a secret back meeting that no one knew about. He comes to everyday events at everyday locations with everyday people and pulls up a chair and sits there and talks.
Now, 2 years ago,
And
at the event we were at together, you interviewed him in the hallway.
exactly. And he didn't say no, 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 this wasn't approved by my folks or anything like that. He was super interested in hearing what you had to say.
He rolled his sleeves up and went to work.
And so I feel like his administration would be community focused in that kind of way of always wanting to understand what's really happening to everyday New Yorkers and how can he use his seat to, help, assist, even if helping is like, I can listen and maybe come up with some solutions, right? He's also not afraid to use the word Black. Most people are afraid to identify as Black first. They identify as everything else, and then you'll hear them say, oh, and then I'm also Black, right? So he is not afraid to identify as Black first and then everything else.
So look, I have one last question for you, and then I'll pass the ball, or we can go home. But I want advice. You know, I have a daughter. This isn't the first time I've asked you this. Like you, she's an entrepreneur. Like you, she's a mom. What is your advice to our young sisters?
One, I think we have to control the narrative that people think about us. And that can be as a group of Black women, but that can also be as you yourself. I think that you have to give people the narrative that you want them to walk away with, right? And so you have to be intentional about the places and the people that you associate with, like in public, right? You can have your ratchet friends in private, right? I think you have to be intentional about that. I think that you also should look for other folks that are doing what you're doing because we understand the struggle, right? Like we understand what that means. My co-founder Emma is also a mom. So when I am struggling with Elijah on the phone and he's crying and he's teething and he's not having a great day, she is someone that's like, okay, have you tried this? Have you tried that? Right? If I'm like super stressed and I'm like, hey, I need to take a nap, she's not like, oh my gosh, like you're not as serious as I thought you were going to be. I get tired, so you need to understand how to connect with people that can be supportive and also encourage you to keep going despite everything else that you have going on, and how they can be helpful and not dismissive of your current situations. Babies aren't babies forever. They grow up, So the space that you're in, how do you deal with that? So I would definitely say that. I would definitely say look for people outside of your age group. So you need your friends to be supportive, but you also need the teachings from people that are older than you because they've already experienced certain things that you don't even know you're going to experience yet. So they can give you some tips. And that doesn't mean that you have to take everything that they say, but you hold it and you use it when it's appropriate for you to use it, right? So you listen to what they have to say. If you don't agree, you don't always have to say, I don't agree, and make it an argument. You can just zip the lips for a moment, take what it applies to you and leave the rest. Because sometimes you don't need it until later on, like 3 years from now, 4 years from now, something that they might have said might stick, might move from the back of your brain to the front of your brain, and you're like, oh, that's what they were talking about. So those would be my tips for now that I think that we should, as Black women, no matter what age group you're in, that we should think about.
Black women are on the rise around the country, around the world, from the Olympics to the Starbucks CEO lady to entrepreneurs. We got what, $2 trillion in annual disposable income. Black women heavily controlling that. There's a black woman running for governor down in Florida. New black mayors, black women mayors. The black woman is on the rise, sister, and nobody can stop it. It's like a shift in the universe.
And you know, if we as black women just support it, and support can mean if you do something that I don't like, I don't need to call you out in public. I could call you out on the side, you know, have a private conversation with you about it. But if we just change the narrative that we don't support each other, because that also happens a lot, you know, black women are angry. If we change the narrative or give people the context behind why we are angry, I think people will start to appreciate us a lot more than they do, because without a lot of things, things wouldn't happen without black women. You know, we are the ones, when you think about anything that's happening politically, people come to black women to man those polling stations, to help get the vote out, to organize events for them. They trust black women to do that. And they rely on us to do that, because they know if we don't do it, it's not going to happen.
The black woman holds the black family together quite often.
We do that. We do that all the time. We also help to raise and nurture kids that aren't our own biological kids, right? We do that all the time. So we start making people respect us, then they would do it. But I think because we can be so fragmented sometimes for other petty things that don't matter, but we all have very common things that we all want, and that's respect and a seat at the table to voice our opinions and to be taken seriously. And that goes across, like, black women from here, black women from the Caribbean, black women from Africa, black women from South America. That goes across, like, wherever you are. But if we started making people say, like, if you talk about my sister, we're going to fight you instead of us fighting each other, people will take us a lot more seriously.
Anything you want to add? Anything you want to ask me? Anything at all?
So, Donnie, I have questions for you. How did you know that this was the direction that you needed to go? Out of all the things that you have done that have led to this point, how did you know starting a Black USA News network was what was needed?
My godbrother preached a sermon once. He said, your passion will lead you to your purpose, and your purpose will lead you to peace. So ever since I was 6 years old, I've been writing. And I'll even confess, one of the first things I wrote was a love letter to a girl in the first grade. I won't say her name. Her name was Lisa. And by the fifth and sixth grade, there was another cat in my class, Gary Forwood. And we used to have handwriting competitions. He was a lefty, but my mother had really great handwriting. And somehow, I mean, I used to copy her style, and it became very useful when I wanted to write myself a note to get out of school. But I just had this love for writing. And my mom's, God rest her soul, I remember she typed up my first set of poems coming out of high school. And so when I got to Morehouse, the first semester, I was there 3 semesters. The first semester, I met Nikki Giovanni over at Spelman. And I gave her those poems. Silly me, no copyright, anything. But the spirit just told me to do that. 2 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail from Nikki Giovanni. And long story short, she said, keep writing. And so when I got to, and that was 83, by 94, I was the editor here in Sandtown of I was a co-editor, and then ultimately the editor of the Sandtown Community newspaper. On average, we did like a 44-page newspaper, tabloid size, like the New York Post, and we delivered it to the 72 square blocks of Sandtown. Now, here's the important part. I love writing, no biggie. I love taking pictures, no biggie. But my daddy was a funeral director. I grew up in a family business. And somewhere along the line, people started paying me to advertise their business, or they were paying Sandtown. But then I said, well, damn, they could pay me. They were paying to advertise their business. And that's where my daddy and my mom's business, the funeral home, that entrepreneurship kicked in, of course, selling newspapers and all of that. It merged with my love for media. So I was seeing not just the media, but the money that could be made if I had my own news outlet. Because I like making money.
Doing something that you love.
Yeah, that's it. And so we started with Be More News. Be More News, of course, short for Baltimore. We covered Ethiopia, Tanzania, Jordan, Jamaica, Canada, 40 trips to the Obama White House. And so BlackUSA.News, which just came about over the winter, just became the natural next step. I did try a national website before, but I didn't have you. I didn't know what I know now. I didn't know Walter. I didn't know Regina, Villa. And so for me, it's been a progression, because the whole Black Business Empowerment Commission, where you and I first met, it was like boot camp. And Mr. Walter, Regina, and Zavilla were like the drill sergeants. He was the general, and they were like drill sergeants. And even though they might not look like drill sergeants, they were drill sergeants, especially if you slip up and you don't say Black business. I'm a minority. You ain't no minority. You Black. You Black. Don't say it. Don't say it again. You're Black, and you're proud to be Black. And don't you let anybody change your thinking. And not only that, they deputized us, just like you set the record straight, Black business. So when I talk to anybody, anywhere in the country, and they slip up and say minority, I'm pimp slapping them. But then I gotta slow down and remember to bring them up to speed. But we are not minorities. We are Black. We are the fathers and mothers of civilization. Our skin is all over the world, from Black Russians to the Fiji Islands, and yes, they are Black Russians. The father of Russian literature is Alexander Pushkin. Everywhere in the world, there are Black roots. There cannot be any roots without Black roots. And so add in the business, the journalism, and then of course that love for Black history. And that's why I love Harlem. I love Harlem because I see a lot of things there that I don't necessarily see in Baltimore. The Harriet Tubman statue, the Adam Clayton Powell statue. In Baltimore, I'm seeing statues of other people, of other races, who in my book don't touch a Adam Clayton Powell, don't touch a Harriet Tubman. But because the people in my city aren't as organized as we should be, we're more fragmented, and we're really caught up in this whole Democratic Republican thing. I see Black people who are more loyal to the Democratic Party than they are to Black people. And I don't want to associate with those kind of Black people. Black first. I don't care who you are, Republican, Independent, Democrat. I'm Black. I'm a Black man in America, and I want to be around like-minded people. And so I'll come to Harlem if that's where I got to go to find other Eagles. And so maybe that's a reminder too, that we are often surrounded by people who don't think like us, and we got to stay connected with Eagles. And sometimes you got to go great distances to find another Eagle, but do what you got to do. And last, and certainly not least, I would just say, going back to the sermon of following your passion to your purpose to your peace, keep God first. Keep God first in everything you do, and you can do anything but fail. I was a little Black journalist in the Middle East in 2002 as the U.S. troops were landing in Iraq next door landing in Jordan to invade Iraq next door. I was in a kidnap zone But I know God is with me there in Tanzania, in the projects in Brooklyn, when I was messing up and being a derelict, to wherever. Just keep God first. Follow what the Almighty God put in your spirit to do. Follow it to the best of your ability, and God got us. Also in Harlem, I mean, to go to the Malcolm X market, or to see references to Marcus Garvey, or just to hear the conversations of the various people from across the diaspora coming down, St. Nicholas, 125th Street, just so beautiful. And I need to see it, and I'll be up there next month. But I come there to refuel, to rejuvenate, to reimagine what I want to see here in Baltimore, which is Black people controlling our own destiny. Just like the father of Harlem, Philip Payton. We are hustlers. We invented hustling. We are the first hustlers. There's no better hustler than us. But we got a lot of noise and stuff confusing us, including the television, that sometimes diminishes our self-value. So much like you, stay connected with the right people, cut out people. I had to get rid of somebody who's been in my life 50 years. They violate family rules. See, there's a code. And if you ask me, that's what's being lost, at least here in the streets of Baltimore, the code. Back in the day, you never sold coke or dope in front of old people, in front of children. You had to know somebody, but we've lost the code. Now you got children telling parents what to do. Not in my house. You try to crack slick on my mother, you'll find your stuff by the front door. Bye-bye. You got children telling parents what to do. And then what really kills me is at the end of the game, when mama's about to die, when Big Mama about to die, Big Papa about to die, then all these people show up and want to steal their stuff. This is mine, and you ain't out to take care of Big Mama. So you said earlier in the interview to give back. You were talking about a dude that reiterated to give back. To whom much is given, much is required. We're losing the code, and we got to get it back. I got to pass it to you. You got to pass it on. You're going to have to remind me, Donnie, that's not the code. Okay. We need each other. That's enough.
I agree. So last question, where do you see our shows going in the future? How many shows do you want to have, and where do you want them to be?
I want us to have 24-hour programming all day, just like when I cut on the television here in Baltimore. Sadly, Fox News is on more than the rest, and I hate the rhetoric that they spew. So I'd love to see Black USA do the same thing, kicking our rhetoric, kicking our information, kicking our history. Supporting your business, supporting businesses in Africa, and connecting us. That's Malcolm said it. Media is the most powerful entity on earth. It can make the innocent look guilty and the guilty look innocent. Look what they did to Bill Cosby with them butt ugly white women. They were ugly. His wife is gorgeous. I don't get that. If you had a gorgeous queen, how these butt ugly women all of a sudden they become important? It was because he wanted to buy NBC. And we live in a nation. Them people that did J6, they are fearful. NWA said it, fear of a black planet. But it's already been a black planet. Some people are in denial. And they think money and guns and all of their trips to outer space is going to clean up their history. No, the only thing that cleans up your history is just like a drug addict. You got to stop being a racist, and you have to change your ways. That's it. These people are arguing about wearing a mask. What type of retarded people is this? How retarded can you get? And then they want to sue the black Capitol police officer for shooting the white lady. That she shouldn't have climbed her butt in there. She got what she was looking for. Half of the people in this country. I mean, the fact that Donald Trump isn't in the penitentiary.
Well, you know, that goes back to like the rules are not the rules. There's different
Yeah,
sets of rules for different sets of people, and they don't want to accept that they were a local terrorist group. They don't want it. They don't want that.
that's why
Anybody with two eyes could see that.
what's this new thing they got out about history where they want to clean up? They don't want to tell the truth about the past.
They don't want to tell the truth about slavery and about what this country has done to Black people. They want to say that we were here as indigent servants, similar to the Irish. That's not what happened. That is not what happened. Or they don't want you to teach history the way that it really happened. They want you to teach it their way, because you know what, with the internet and with more people going to college and learning and reading books, we have been re-educating our children to know what is the truth. Like Christopher Columbus did not discover America. I do not want to celebrate Christopher Columbus Day. And we have been pushing the envelope and reintroducing ideas that they wanted to keep hidden from us, but we have uncovered them, and we are pushing it to the forefront of saying, I don't want Confederate statues in front of my school, in front of my town, you know, my courthouse, in front of my this, in front of my that. This person was a slave owner. Why do they have a statue? What happened to this? What happened to that? And they don't like that. You know,
Get over it. Just like they don't like wearing a mask. Who cares? Grow up.
And so they're trying to the Confederates still don't want to understand that they lost. They lost the Civil War. They don't want to get that through their heads that they lost. Get over it. You lost. Okay. They don't want to get over it. They don't want to get over that slavery was abolished. You know, there's memes going around that Black people became lazy when we stopped working for free. You know, now these are just rhetoric that they want to put together.
Isn't that hilarious? Somebody that would die trying to enslave somebody else, their grandchildren have the audacity to spit something so ignorant, not ignorant, ignorant. You know,
I would tell you
it's mental illness. They are mentally ill.
I wish that I had the courage that I have now. When I was in undergrad, I was a history major. I wanted to study ancient
critical
history.
Critical race theory. That's it.
But I am not a linguistic person. So I went into world history because I wanted to know everything that happened. I took American history class for gen ed, and I wish that I had the kind of confidence that I have now. But I was there, and my professor asked, what were the benefits of slavery? And he asked me that question. And I said, I don't want to answer that question because there were no benefits. I was the only Black person in that class. And the rest of my white classmates were saying, oh, we just bought people and worked them to death. And when they died, we just bought somebody else. And to hear in had to be 2010 that people thought that way. I had a noose on campus. I had people writing, kill all the niggas on elevator doors. And this is not a long time ago. This was in 2010, 2011. This was crazy. You know, it was just madness.
I want to tell you, those are signs of a coward.
And
when you think of America, America has a lot of cowards because where I come from, you had to hold your own.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody was going to fight your fight for you but you. So when you think of the Black soldiers in the Revolutionary War that they try to hide, like James Fortin, like Crispus Attucks, when you think about the Blacks in the Civil War, including Cathay Williams, the first woman, when you think about our soldiers and when you think about their soldiers, it's night and day. Our soldiers earn their stripes. They're soldiers, pussycats.
They get so.
I
This is
wouldn't
why you
want to
have
see
so
them in
many
a fight
Karens.
because they have no courage.
You
See,
have so many Karens. The worst thing they could have did was make cameras in these cell phones. They're so afraid that they have done that. Why? Because we're smart enough to turn the camera on because we know that our word against other people's word, no one's going to believe us. But when you look at that footage and see how many Karens exist,
but
and they're everywhere.
Karen is a fraud because Karen was secretly making love to the black man in the barn, in the slave pen. Karen is a fraud, and Karen needs to stop. She need to come on out and show her true colors. Karen is a fraud. Karen had a crush on the black man since forever.
Karen is ridiculous. I watch these videos.
Plus, Karen know what a real man is. See, if you got to get 20 of your boys on a horseback with a hood over your face, hiding yourself, that's not a man. That's a coward. So we live around cowards.
We do, and they are, I spoke to one of my Asian friends not too long ago, recently, and I went to her. We were having brunch, and I said, why is it that everybody is so afraid when a black person asks for a black agenda or what is necessary for their community? No one gets upset when an Asian person says, I'm going to have Chinatown, or I'm going to have Chinese American agenda, or I'm going to have this specifically for my group of people. And we know that that doesn't include us, and we don't try to be included. We give you Chinatown. We give you those things. How come when a black person asks for their due of saying, what is my black agenda, you guys don't want to talk about it. You guys want to talk about an everybody agenda. And she said, that's because we're scared. She said that is because we are afraid. When black people start asking for their stuff and their blackness, everybody gets scared. She said, ain't nobody scared.
They need to be afraid, and they need to get up out of Africa, including those 13 Chinese police stations in South Africa. See, we got to go back to Africa and straighten our brothers out, just like Joseph in the Bible. Joseph was sold into slavery, but we got to go back there and straighten. Ain't no damn way on God's green earth I need 13 Chinese police stations in South Africa. Get your ass out.
We need to do that. I was like, this is ridiculous. And so I was happy that we had that conversation, because sometimes you need to just have frank conversation. And so I told her, I don't want to be rude, but I don't care about your Asian agenda. I care about my black agenda first, and then I come back and help you afterwards. And she said, you should be about that, and you should raise your son to be about that, and you should not be afraid to say, this is what I need for my culture. I hear everybody else, but I want to be focused on my culture. And so people don't want us to have those kinds of discussions. They want us to be afraid. They want us to have it in private rooms where it doesn't ever go anywhere. They don't want us to read about it. They don't want us to write about it. They don't want us to share about it. They don't want us to educate anyone else about it. But we have to, because if we don't, no one is going to know.
How can people get in touch with you, Tasemere Gathers?
Well, one, you need to watch my show on Saturday mornings, the Blackout, live from New York, right here, 10 a.m. every Saturday. We explore economics as it relates to Black America, as it relates to Black people across the diaspora. We review articles, we break them down, we have commentary around it. If you want to get in touch with me about any of my business endeavors, the DM Firm or Brunch Pitch, you can reach out to me at info@thedmfirmnyc.com. Or if you're interested in the Brunch Pitch, you can reach out to brunchpitch@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram at the DM Firm. Send me an email, hit up Donnie, look at my show. There's many ways to get in contact with me.
I'm so proud of you, sister. I'm so proud of our family. And this network, you ask me, I'm going to ask you offline, like I've been doing, how we grow this and where you want to see it go. But we want to touch the Black centers across America for starters, including East St. Louis, the South Side of Chicago, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Overtown down in Florida. We want to touch our people, and we want to have a collective voice. So thank you for all that you do. Big ups to Eli. He's going to inherit this kingdom, and we're going to be all right.
Yes, we are.
Much love to you, Taz. Have a beautiful day.
You too.
And we'll be back tonight at 7 p.m. with Shared Space with Dave Lovelace, Quita Chansey, and Dayshawn Brooks. Have a beautiful day, everybody.